Welcome to Venture Unscripted, a podcast where we talk with founders and entrepreneurs about their journey from 0 to 1.
Welcome to Venture Unscripted today. Today I have with me my friend Todd Kuslikis and old co-founder, which I'm really excited to be interviewing him today, and we can have a conversation on a little bit about your background, and then we can get into a little bit about how our paths cross. So welcome,
Awesome.
Todd.
Cool. Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah. So give me a little bit about little info about your background.
Yeah.
So for the rest of us, because I know a lot about you. So.
You don't know anything about me. So my biggest passion is in health and fitness, and so that's really where I got my start. Actually, even before my first websites, I was doing a massage, a stretching manual with Blue Heron Academy, which is here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And while I was doing the shoot for different stretches, when the photographer is like, "Hey, let's just do some like fun stuff," because he knew I was really into bodyweight exercises. And so I just started to do, and actually it wasn't even videos, it was GIFs. So he'd do a picture of the before and
That's
after.
old school.
Very old school. It was pre-ChatGPT, pre everything. And but it was actually innovative at that time, he's like, I'm doing weird bodyweight exercises like dolphin push-ups and Hindu squats and whatnot. And so he would do these transitions of me doing, say, a dolphin push-up. And then he just threw it up online. And then it was like 6 months later, I went over there because we were doing another revision to the manual. And he's like, let's just check out like what those GIFs are doing. And they had like tens and hundreds of thousands of views on them.
GIFs?
I don't know. It was just on some website that he put up. I think it was like sourceofvitality.com, which was technically my first website I ever started, like 15. I don't know if it was like 17 years ago. And like what he found was that these other Indian, Chinese forums were embedding our GIFs onto those forums, and they were getting major traction of like just these random weird, I did like 50 to 100 different weird bodyweight calisthenics that people don't really know about. And so that was kind of my first foray into realizing that internet can be a leverage point to whatever you're passionate about.
You don't know they had billboards of your face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This will be a celebrity in India. I've never been over to India, but I am a celebrity over there. So, and that was my first foray. And I kind of just logged that in the back of my mind, not realizing that there would be, that would be kind of the origin of something in the future. And then from there, I did my regular schooling. I went to Grand Valley State, getting my master's degree in public administration, while I started my first kind of more successful website called A Shot of Adrenaline. And so I realized, okay, well, those GIFs worked in the past. Yeah. Well, they've got to work again. So I just started doing the same thing, but creating YouTube videos with the old, if you remember the old flip video camera.
Sure. Yes.
And you plug it in USB. I mean, I think that's really all it did. Old. It was very old. I don't know what the bit rate and things like that is, but it was, not good quality.
It's basically recording in a GIF.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple more pictures in there, and they called it a video. But I did it. I put it up online, and same thing happened. These really weird, and it was only 20-second videos. I wasn't doing intros or outros or whatever. It was just unique content that people hadn't seen before, and I think that got traction. And so I started to get into SEO and content writing. Wrote over 500 blog articles for our site, and it was getting 3,000-4,000 visitors a day to the blog. And then from there, just started to scale up, and learning direct response copywriting for health and fitness, which is what I've been in, is my main passion, is in health and fitness, specifically around content marketing.
Yeah.
So,
cool. Yeah. And we talk about Venture Unscripted is a little bit of like opening the curtain behind the door of a successful startup, because I've watched you through some of your journey, and it's been cool to see A Shot of Adrenaline, and now you're into some other ones, but tell us a little bit about some of the early days of like A Shot of Adrenaline.
Yeah.
It was just you.
Just me,
in a basement or something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, some of the funniest videos, you could probably look it up on right now on YouTube, are my PVC gym that I created in our basement. And it was made out of PVC. And, I just put this PVC glue together, but it was super elaborate. So you could do all these, it was, super large. And you could do all these different like parallettes, and it had, different stations on it, but it was all made out of PVC. Because you see some things online, and you might have to, pay $3 or $4 grand for it.
Right.
And it's like, well, you could buy PVC from Home Depot for, $100 and have enough equipment. So I did. I made this like super elaborate, kind of routine that you could do, put it up on YouTube. Of course, the comments are absolutely hilarious because I'm like, doing these like, whatever muscle ups or whatever on this PVC gym. And there's nothing reinforcing it. So at any time, this PVC can just collapse, snap, and smash my face off. And everyone's noticing that, oh my gosh, like I would never go on that thing. That guy's gonna kill himself. And but it got a lot of traction, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it kind of goes back to realizing that the element of novelty is really important when you're having a startup. But yeah, at those early days, it was just me, essentially in the basement or in the kind of home office, just writing blog articles, pre-AI, pre-everything, just me doing research and putting them up and realizing that people were interested in home fitness because the other opportunities were around either buying fitness equipment or going to the gym and realizing, this is something that you can get into really good shape at home. And so it's like 2.5 years and I just focused on SEO, got a lot of traction, but realized even when you have traffic, leveraging Google ads is not the best way to generate revenue. So realizing, man, I don't like know how to make money online. I know how to get traffic, but I don't know how to make money. And so I was actually like at my wit's end, like 2.5 years in, I actually wanted to quit. And I was like, I don't think I'll just kind of do my regular job. And from a previous startup, I knew Lee Labrada, who's the founder, who's like Mr. Universe and started Labrada Nutrition. So I called him up and asked him how do you make money online? And he was really focused on supplements. So he's like, I've got a very good friend in Florida. I want you to talk to him. And his name's Hugo Rivera. You can look him up online right now. And he was a natural bodybuilder, but he was a master in copywriting. I was like, oh my gosh. So I looked him up and he spent like 2.5 hours with me just on a Saturday. I remember like pacing in my backyard. Like, he's like, you got to create a program. You got to write copy around like having a sales page and a landing page. I'm like, what's a landing page? What's sales copy? And so he just literally walked me through it. I never dime. Wow. And he just wrote all my email swipe files to my email list. And that first launch for my first program, I made like $5,000. I was like, and before I was making like 4 cents a day from like several thousand visitors a day to my site. I'm like, well, okay, there's something to this copywriting and using words for influence. And from there, built up Bodyweight Overload, which was, again, our first program, had affiliates promote for it, gave them the majority of the revenue because the money with any, online business, especially in the direct response space, is made through the email list. So getting the email list, promoting. And so realized, wow, I can make a lot of money online through email, and then started to do launches. So we did several bundle sales where I got together 37 experts in fitness. We all contributed an ebook and then wrote copy and sales page around that and then had everyone promote. And I ended up with a list. I gave everyone else the majority of the revenue from the front end. And boom, I realized that from there, copy and really content marketing is where I really wanted to focus on.
That's awesome. And how long from start of business to earning $5,000? What you said that was over 2 years?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
And it probably took me another 6 months to put together the program. The initial sales page is pretty wonky. It wasn't great copy.
Yeah.
I'd say it was fairly poor copy, but it still worked, right? And so it pulled those customers in. I just put the product up on ClickBank and pulled the customers in, and it worked. And then realized, like, man, this is how you do it. And so we continued to develop more programs from there. But it took a while. 2.5 years. With any business, right, you're not going to see instant success.
That's right.
And it takes persistence and it takes continual learning.
Yes.
So for me, it was realizing that I'm not just going to keep my head down. There's a time to keep your head down and just realize, hey, there's a long time horizon before success is going to happen. One of my favorite books is Good to Great, and kind of the core principle of very successful businesses is ordinary things done consistently produce extraordinary results.
Yes.
Right. So there's a long time horizon to this, but in a short time horizon, you've got to realize what's the strategy that I'm implementing that's going to lead to the success that's going to happen over the long term. And for me, I realized that copywriting and realizing that words have power, whether you're speaking it or through written, or through, say, a video, like a short or TikTok, you can influence people to take action.
Right.
And knowing the core problem that you're solving is really important because, say, if someone's on TikTok, the core problem that they're solving is oftentimes boredom, right? And so maybe they're not looking to solve their problem of, whatever, I'm, either overweight or, I've got poor eyesight or whatever, but their core problem is boredom. So, understanding that TikTok might be a platform for brand awareness or building up your audience through retargeting, and then you target on Facebook through, converting them into customers.
Right.
So
it was 2.5 years, and then when did you make the jump full time? Because you were doing this like moonlighting,
yes,
right?
Yes. It was about the 3.5 year mark, because
Okay.
I launched the bodyweight bundle, which is kind of my first big launch. We did like, I don't know, 400,000 in total revenue from that. Again, the affiliates made most of that, but I ended up with like almost 10,000 customers on the list. And so from there, on average, especially in the health and fitness space, you should be able to make about $1 per month per customer on your email list. And so I ended up with 10,000, and I was making a lot less with that on my regular corporate job. And it's funny because I didn't know that at the time. I just ended up with a bunch of these customers.
Right.
And I remember talking to a friend, because I'm like, oh man, I gave all my affiliate revenue, to my affiliates, all this revenue, and realizing all I'm left with is just a bunch of emails. I'm like, well, that's not really valuable, is it? And so I talked to a buddy, and he was doing like many 6 figures every month. He's like, you have no idea what you have. Like that customer data is really important. And he's like, again, similar to Hugo, he starts giving me recommendations. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this and start sending some email promotions for other people's products and offerings that are very synergistic. So people just bought our bodyweight bundle, which is very calisthenics based, but they might be interested in supplements or other info products.
Right.
And once a buyer, always a buyer. So if they bought one thing, they'll buy other things. And so we just communicated with them, built a relationship with me, as I go by Bodyweight Todd online, or Coach Todd is my other brand, and realizing that people build a relationship with an email list. For me personally, I rarely buy anything from email. What, email? But billions and billions of dollars are being made through email, and realizing that, I might not be my target customer because I'm just, I'm a fitness connoisseur, but like I've got 20 years of background in fitness and health. And so, I know all the, a lot of the core principles of it, but someone that might be just starting out, they might be willing to spend $37, $27 on a program that they can follow to help solve the problem that they're experiencing. And so, it was like 3.5 years when I went full time and, built up a team, and have never looked back, never stepped back in, or even wanted to step back into the corporate field.
Right. Who wants to do that?
I don't know anyone.
Oh, that's awesome. And then what happened after you got a shot of adrenaline going? What's after that?
So got a shot of adrenaline going, and then really built up a team around that. Kind of, we were in Michigan, and then transitioned into Silicon Valley. So wanted to realize that direct response, for me personally, there was, even a lot more to it than just direct response and copywriting, and there's a lot to that, but realizing that, I wanted to do some other things in health and fitness. And so, at that time I had 2 kids and younger kids, and we moved out to San Jose and started to get involved in networks out there where, say you're at a networking event with 20 or 30 people, and you just randomly bump into the person that, started Skype. And he's like, oh yeah, I sold Skype to, whoever for like $300 million. So that's like, holy cow. Like that literally happened. I'd just randomly bump into, or Sean Ellis, one of the lean startup guys, or, these networking events. People say your net worth is your network, and so realizing that, to expand yourself, being connected with other people that are doing big things was really important for me. And so realizing, well, shoot, like, shot of adrenaline is here. I want to do something different, and realizing, well, there could be an opportunity, and started off, and this is kind of where a lot of our path converges with the idea of doing an online fitness video platform like Netflix or Twitch, for fitness. And I think that's when I called you up and said, hey, you were at KPMG at that point, and realizing, hey,
you were like,
here's an idea. Yeah, get out of there. You got your golden handcuffs tied to yourself. And I think I presented the idea to you, and I don't remember exactly your reaction. You're like, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard."
I was like, "Get out of here! I don't want to see."
I don't even like you as a friend.
Oh yeah, no. And then the rest is kind of history with us. I ended up leaving KPMG. Long story short. And then went out to Silicon Valley with you. And then we tried building this thing.
That's right.
And tell everyone about the first out of the gate. Like, what is the premise of like what we wanted to do?
Yeah.
Like, what problem do we want to solve? And then like, how do we start?
Yeah. Well, the initial premise was, I mean, similar to Peloton, where you've got live interaction with a cycling coach.
Yes.
It's similar. So the concept has legs and merit, and I think everyone and their mother has tried to do some type of fitness live streaming thing where you get connected to a coach, or you say from a coach's perspective or a trainer's perspective, you can train people one-on-one, or you can do group coaching, but what if you could train tens of thousands of people live, and you're monetizing that, and the people that are watching that content or consuming that content and actually working out are building a deep relationship with you. And so from a sound perspective, a soundbite perspective, it sounds very plausible, right? And so I think that was our initial premise. We raised some initial, seed funding, and tried it and built it, right? And built, I mean, you were the spearheader behind all that, the technology behind actually creating the live streaming for fitness. And, I was obviously more on the fitness side and getting people, hey, we've got this new idea of live streaming for fitness. And, and honestly, it was well received from the trainer's perspective.
Yes.
I mean, it's an easy pitch, like, hey, reach more people and make more money.
Well, who wouldn't want to do that?
I don't know any trainer that would want to do that.
And we had a bunch of trainers. How many trainers did we have at one point?
I don't know. I mean, maybe over 100 or so. I don't remember how many trainers we had, but it was like, there was a lot of challenges to it. It was challenges, from a tech perspective. I think the tech was actually working pretty well. I mean, I think from a trainer perspective, getting their camera set up. I know a lot of the feedback that we got is it wasn't as professional as people would like. I still push back on that. I don't know if the core value proposition was professionalism. It was connection, which you don't necessarily need professionalism for that. I mean, look at any TikTok video that's doing well. You don't need professionalism. But people wanted that, we thought that people wanted that connection.
Yeah.
And I think one of the, then we built it from there. But I think one of the biggest reasons it didn't take off is because it wasn't as convenient. Yes, people could work out from their own home, but maybe they had, a kid or a dog just threw up in the carpet or something, and their class is starting and their camera is supposed to be on, right? And so, consuming fitness content online or, through YouTube, or if you buy a program, you have true convenience. You can do it when you want, how you want. You can have your camera off. But what we were trying to do is build connection and realize that, well, shoot, it was a larger burden, to have this, and then turn your camera on in front of 10 or 50 random people, strangers that you don't know.
Because we had it set up to where it was not only watching the trainer, it was also you had your own group of people you were with. You could turn on your camera and be like, oh, we think that people will want to work out with each other, and then didn't think about, people are like probably half awake, not really in a state to be on video. Like,
that's right. They're sweating.
They don't want to shower to be on video to work out.
Yeah, exactly. And then have to shower again.
Exactly.
So, and I think the core concept of connection is there.
Yes.
However, if someone else is doing a similar startup, could achieve, because one of the core problems in fitness is lack of accountability.
Yes.
I mean, accountability is important for any field, especially in health and fitness. If you don't feel accountable to someone, you are most people are not going to do their workouts unless you're very self-motivated, but majority of people aren't. So having that accountability factor, in essence, the core value proposition is there, and how do you actually fulfill it in the marketplace and deliver that core value? It was not solved through live streaming.
That's right.
Because, number one, the problem with the trainer speaking to 50 or 100 people, like, the trainer's not going to notice if someone's not there.
That's right.
If it was 10 people, yes. If it's 50, but now if it's just 10, now the trainer's not reaching tens of thousands of people, they're only reaching 10.
That's right.
So now the monetization method needs to be different, where each person has to pay, I don't know, $1,000 a month.
Right.
And then you give, 70% of it something to the trainer. But who wants to pay $1,000 for live streaming when they can get it for free on YouTube? And so there was a lot of challenges from a structural perspective. I think that fell flat on its face. And so what we did is we pivot. I mean, I think and you realize any successful startup that has done something big, there's been some level of pivoting in what they're doing. I mean, who goes to the marketplace with the perfect idea? Every
we thought we
time.
were going to.
Well, we knew we were going to.
We were very convinced.
Very convinced, that was right. And I think that's the linchpin in the unsuccessful marketer or unsuccessful entrepreneur is, I'm right, I know I'm right. I think that's the biggest problem with entrepreneurs and marketers is that they think, and instead of looking at the data or actually going to the market that they're trying to sell to and getting real-time feedback, and saying, hey, this is the core, and having a core problem. What is the core problem? It's like starting with a feature versus a benefit. Well, live streaming is a feature, right? Lack of accountability is a core problem you're solving. But if you're trying to solve it with this feature of live streaming, maybe it's a mismatch. So being, removed from the feature or the element or the mechanism, the unique mechanism that you're trying to solve the problem is really important. So then you can try different unique mechanisms at low cost to try to find the match between the mechanism and the core problem. And so from there, I think we transitioned, if I remember correctly, into Fit Huddle. Is that correct? Was that before or was that after?
So we pivoted a lot. And I remember the moment that we had invested, what, was it 3 or 4 months of time down this first road? And I remember driving. And you just came from a lean startup conference.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's where someone was talking about lean startup.
Yeah.
And you're like, have you read the book Lean Startup? Oh yeah, I read the book.
I knew that. I read that.
I
wrote
it basically. I was driving down and I remember you telling me all these things, and there was this sinking feeling like, oh my gosh, we built the wrong thing and did the wrong thing in the wrong way.
That's right. I think you used the analogy of building a ladder, but it being pressed against the wrong wall. And so it's a really good analogy for any entrepreneur or startup building anything. It's like, are you building your ladder on the right wall, right? Because it takes so many resources and time to build a ladder. So let's first make sure we're building it on the correct wall. And the only way you can do that is through market feedback and testing using very, very minimal viable products and understanding, and having that real-time feedback. You build a little bit of ladder and get feedback, a little bit more. Oh, okay, shoot, like that's the wrong wall. It's close to the right wall. Let's pivot the ladder a little bit, actually rebuild this section of the ladder, and then realizing, and we didn't do that. We built a pretty decent ladder. Unfortunately, it was on the wrong wall.
Very tall on the wrong wall.
Exactly, and then it's like, you got to peel that back. And every startup and frankly, every business has time against and for them. If you've got a really strong momentum, as the Good to Great would call a flywheel, something working for you, time is for you. But if you don't have that flywheel built, it's working against you. You've got a certain runway that you got to work in, a constraint, and so time is of the essence. And we just spent too much time working on this one ladder. So I think we peeled back. I came back from the conference and we started to dive into, well, what would it have looked like if we could just test the product, test the idea in the ideation stage before we actually built it. And I think that's in the same time we came back to the core problem, right? Because any startup has a core problem, and the core problem of lack of accountability in fitness, and realizing maybe the accountability between the trainer and the individual is not the bridge we need to build. Maybe it's the accountability between the people inside the app is the bridge that we need to build. And I think that's where we initially went into like this huddle idea of like group fitness. And I think, I don't remember exactly what type of app we built. I remember spending hours on a play button, you and I going back and forth.
That doesn't look like a play button.
I'm like, you're like, it's a triangle. Like, it doesn't look like it. I think I spent like a couple hours, right? And like arguing with you. And you're like,
there's a good principle there. There's a lot of people that focus on, for your early market, they shouldn't care about aesthetics if you're really, really solving an aspirin problem.
That's right. Yes, exactly. And I think the whole Steve Jobs kind of persona of like, and a lot of entrepreneurs hear the story, say Steve Jobs like focusing so much on like the aesthetics and the beauty of it and correlating beauty or perfection of product with solving the core problem and getting success. And it's the same problem that I think Hollywood and movies changes the mindset of an entrepreneur and creates this false narrative
Yeah.
that the hero is the one that comes in and solves the problem. You know, it's the Rocky or the Rambo, like the one. Okay, of course, it's like all Stallone, right? Or Arnold. You know, it's like the one person, whereas it's not the one person. It's the team that's working cohesively to discover a problem and solve it in a unique way that the marketplace hasn't really seen before. And so I think we peeled back that layer and then realized that, well, maybe, I think we had some initial traction and then realized that, well, maybe we needed to gamify it, you know, a little bit more and find like mechanisms of making it sticky, you know, and that's when we got in touch with, you know, one of the foremost gamification experts in the world, and then started to learn like story. And I think we went down the rabbit hole of like you building, like spending 2 weeks of writing a story. And
I mean, we went down the program route.
The program.
If you remember, we
yes,
created
that's
programs.
right. We did programs.
Like, we had all this recorded content, so let's just create programs out of it.
That's right.
And then my little crazy story idea after talking to their gamification expert of, oh, you need to create a story around this. Like that was one idea, and I ran off the reservation with that one. It was just
your story was really good.
Did you ever
publish that story?
I should, because I locked myself in a room for 2 weeks.
I know.
And the whole team was like, this is never going to work. And I came out and it didn't work.
It didn't work
at all.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah, it didn't work. There's a lot of things that didn't work. There was something that did work, right, is when we started to realize that there's an element of you stay focused on the core problem and you start testing ideas minimally. I think you were in Silicon Valley at that time. We were up in Founders Floor, I think is what it's called, Matt Day's incubator, and we're throwing ideas at the wall. And to your credit, you came up with the idea of a blue versus red 5-on-5 challenge, right, in a competition. So we had an element of accountability and competition. So the idea was you put 5-on-5 teams against each other. For each workout, they might get 100 points. For each, little mini challenge, like do 10 push-ups, you get 20 points, and we'd have little mini things from there. But we didn't build an app for that.
No.
Right? We just got the phone numbers of our current user base, and some people that weren't our user base. We said, hey, we're going to do, I think I'm the one on my phone. I led one team. And then, you on your phone, you led the red team. I had the blue team. And then we put those people against each other. And we'd text. I was kind of the leader for my team. You're the leader for your team. And so, okay, Sally, okay, you got 100 points. Okay, total team score, 700 points because, you did these workouts and whatnot. And then I remember, like, there was a point when, like, we were going back and forth, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, and the challenge for the day would end at midnight. And it was like insane energy.
Intense.
Yeah, it was very intense. And, if you looked at it from an engagement rate perspective, which is
off the charts.
It was off the charts. And we had something insanely special. So it's like this element of building accountability through competition was this magic sauce for fitness. And then we started to get more teams, and then each team was able to name their team. So you created more cohesion around the team. And then we created this bracket system and 5-on-5 and whatnot. And we actually had the problem that we ran into was burnout. Because people were so engaged with our app. They're like, I need a break.
I need a break.
2 weeks off because I'm just like, this is just so intense. Which we're like, wow, like that's an interesting problem to solve for when people are using your app too much. It's like being too engaged in Facebook. I'm spending 3 hours on my feed because I keep getting the dopamine response. But we found that we gave the dopamine to each individual because they felt, and everyone's looking to feel more important about themselves, right? It's just kind of a core biological, aspect of humankind that they want to feel important, and so we gave that itself of importance to the people through this 5-on-5 fitness challenge.
And I remember those long nights because it was in those challenges. It was a 7-day challenge. The most amount of days out of the challenge, you'd win the challenge. And it was like you said, it was every night. It was till midnight. People were up, and I remember it was like we started with 10 5-on-5. And then I was like, hey, there's something interesting here. And then you did it.
That's
and
right.
then we expanded it to the rest of our team, and then we were running I mean, hundreds of people over text.
That's right,
and
over
spreadsheets.
text. Yes, exactly.
We're keeping track of all these things on text and spreadsheets, and
send the spreadsheet out to the people so they could see the brackets and the scores and whatnot.
It was intense. So, and I remember we had talked about how we tried to automate some of it. If you remember, I remember we got to a point where you couldn't handle more teams. I couldn't handle, because we're doing it all manually.
That's right.
And so I remember us also then taking the next step and automating it over text. Do you remember?
I do.
So I remember us me walking into Best Buy, buying these Verizon phones and hacking them.
Yeah.
And then that's how we...
What do you not hack, Josh? Anything you buy, you always hack, so I'm not too surprised about that.
Well, and that's because if you remember, we talked to the CEO of... Was it the CEO, CTO of Broadband?
Oh, yes, yes.
And so we had talked with them because Twilio used kind of under the hood was utilizing that. And
That's
so
right.
we had talked about, hey, this is really, we wanted to use their platform, but it was very expensive.
Yeah.
And so for what we were doing of this automated texting, group text, and we couldn't figure it out. So I instead of paying the amount, we were like, we're gonna go into Verizon and do unlimited texting, and that's when we hit that threshold limit of we could no longer use Verizon when we hit their limit.
That's right, and I think there's a good lesson in there too, is solving the right problem at the right time, right? Because a lot of our mindset, and I remember my mindset because I was focused on like growth or like thinking, well, what if we had 1 million users using this? Like we would be spending, tens of thousands a day on data or whatever, and just like we just can't afford that. You don't have, millions of users at that point. Maybe you had 500 or 1,000, and so realizing solving the right problem at the right time is really important.
Yes,
and I think a lot of people miss, and I know we did, is having lack of clarity on the right problem.
Yes.
Getting clarity on, okay, what's the core problem we're solving for today or this week, and realizing we've got a laundry list of other problems.
Yes.
But let's put those on the back burner.
Solve this one.
Solve this one. This is our main one. We can't figure out, how to keep people engaged.
Yes.
We solved that problem, and then we went into scale. Like,
and
how
burn
do we,
them out.
Yeah, and burn them out. Yeah, exactly. And I think we did try to think through how to burn them out less, but maybe that wasn't the right core problem at that time. So it's like prioritizing your problems, finding a core problem, solving that, tracking your learnings too.
Yes.
So you're not losing your learnings, tracking your learnings, and then moving on to the next set of problems and prioritizing that.
Yes.
I mean, it's just basic task management for your own personal day, right?
Yes.
It's like, eat the ugliest frog first, like old Brian Tracy thing. It's like, what's the main thing you're trying to do? And if you only did that today, great.
Yes.
Like you could not do anything else today, but if you ate the ugliest frog, first thing, get it done, you had a successful day. You do that over time, you're going to be massively successful.
Right.
I think people jump into not understanding what their day is, and they all of a sudden they're off the rails or putting out fires, and they realize, what did I do today? So startups are the same way. What's the main problem I'm solving for? And you don't need to raise millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. You think, well, what's the main problem I'm trying to solve? Can we solve it for free using spreadsheets and text messages? And then, we found some help over in the Philippines or something, and it's like managing all these. It's like that might have cost, a couple grand a month, but we could have been at 50,000 users by having 3 or 4 full-time people over in another country to manage that. That would have been a better way to do it than, hey, now let's try to use more cash to find the technology. And I think you always had this saying where technology, you should not even kind of see the technology. It should always just be in the background, but whatever your core problem is or your core value proposition, that you're providing the marketplace, that's what's supposed to be front and center. So I think we had some core learnings, and with any startup, you just have this runway. And we ended up with a burnout runway,
Our team was burned out.
Yes. And to be honest, I think we were burned out in a lot of it. It's like,
because we did this for 3 years.
3 years, yeah. And anyone you find, and the challenge is I think that we felt is we found something, that's magical, and then you end up with more roadblocks. And it can almost be worse than just not finding anything for 3 years. And it's like finding something and then thinking, oh well, maybe this isn't it, because we're not I don't know, getting Pokemon growth levels or something. Pokemon Go, remember that
Yes.
Pokemon Go
Oh,
thing?
yeah.
It's like, oh, one day they launch, the next day. I mean, oftentimes that's a fallacy or farce, like thinking, oh, you just launched and then 2 days later, other than ChatGPT, which destroyed every growth metric
Yes.
of, from all time. But, most things do take time to
Yes.
start and get traction. If you look at the long time horizon of a successful startup, they could have been beating their head against the wall for 3 years.
Well, and I think, I think we probably would have found and found product market fit and continued had our last pivot been front loaded to the beginning of our journey.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that's where it also, I think, you and I both feel like, and the team felt like we found something truly special.
Yeah.
And in fact, we not only burned all of our capital we had raised, we also started spending our own money.
That's right.
Like, so it was like we were keeping it going for a period of time at the end.
Right.
So it's like, and you spent a lot of your money invested into this too. So we kept going and going and going with it. And if we had front loaded at the beginning, I think we could have.
Yeah. Exactly. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yes.
I always tell my wife, like, oh man, if I knew say I go back to high school and I knew then what I know now, man, I would be, the boss or whatever, And it's like, you don't live your life that way.
That's right.
And
can't quarterback it.
Yeah. And I'm reading a book, his name's Todd Sullivan, The Alter Ego. It's a really, really good book. But you look at really successful people, and they've oftentimes created alter egos. Like Beyonce has created Sasha Fierce, or LeBron James, I think, is the Black Panther, or David Goggins, who's like this ultra marathoner. He says when he reaches this breaking point when he's running, 100 miles, Goggins comes in, and Goggins never stops. Like, he just always goes. But David is kind of a weakling, so he just created, it's like this natural alter ego of Goggins comes in, and you realize over and over again, like this alter ego, like this kind of this interesting dynamic.
Bodyweight Todd.
Exactly. Comes into the picture and kind of pushes you through, and I think that's, I don't know, it's an important part of any, achieving any success, I think, is being able to push through the difficult times, however you do that, personal motivation, alter egos, whatever, but there's time to quit too. And I think, unfortunately, we killed the entire app instead of just leaving it in the marketplace.
Yes.
For some reason, we thought, we'll just literally kill it.
Push the kill button.
The kill button. But with the entrepreneur journey, it's never a straight line. You always learn things, and your greatest failures can be your greatest lessons, which you then carry into other startups and achieve more success.
Yeah. And speaking of which, so what are you up to now after that experience?
Yeah, so I'm working on a few different things. I've got a couple different health companies. I still have a shot of adrenaline. I'm actually looking for a buyer for that. Feel Good Life when we built Shot of Adrenaline, I actually stepped away from Rally All, stepped back into the company. We created a sister brand called Feel Good Life, and so we help people over 50 with joint pain. And so, we've grown that pretty well, and creating different supplements and markets, different programs and whatnot, written by DPT, Doctors of Physical Therapy, and whatnot. And so I've got kind of a side business as well, focusing on media buying using content marketing. So we do a lot of media buying, whether it be Facebook or TikTok or whatever. Really, and when I look at my whole horizon, of marketing is kind of like the general principle of, there's a saying where you wanna form yourself like a T, know a lot about a little things and then go deep in one or two things. Right. Like for me, the deep stuff is in content marketing specifically, and understanding how copy and using words, whether it be through videos or SEO content, written content, or on a sales page. Like I go deep in those elements, and realizing that you can use words to influence people to watch a video, have a buyer's decision, and buying your products or whatever. So that's really kind of my main T element, is using copy and thinking through hooks, unique angles, say for TikToks or videos, and pulling people into whatever brand that I'm trying to build.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well,
cool stuff.
Thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah.
It was fun to reminisce and go down the memory lane.
Exactly.
So,
it's always fun to kind of retrospect and think about learnings.
Cool.
So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.